Okay, guys, I have a question for you. Will you accept this rose? The newest season of The Bachelorette premiered with two women looking for love, Gabby Wendy and Rachel Recchia, who were on our show last week. So check it out after you finish listening to this episode. But it's the first time the franchise will air a full season with two leads in the driver's seat. It's not the first time there were two bachelorettes, though. Diehard fans of the show will recall that Kaitlyn Bristowe's season started with two bachelorettes on night one. But by the time night one ended, the men of her season voted that Kaitlyn will continue her journey to find her husband on the show, and Britt Nielsen would be going home. So much has happened since then, and we have to talk about last night's premiere. So joining me now to discuss it all is Kaitlyn Bristowe herself, former Bachelorette and franchise co-host. We're so excited to have you here. So we just took a quick trip down memory lane there, talking about your season of The Bachelorette. When you first heard there would be two leads this season, what were your thoughts?
At first, I was like, no, please don't do this again. I thought we learned our lesson the first time. Nobody liked having two bachelorettes the last time. It felt like we were pitted against each other. I thought they both deserved their own season, either one or the other, or both, for them to have their own season. But from watching their, social media and their friendship develop and seeing that they still seem close, I'm like hoping that it worked out well for everybody. But at the same time, I'm watching last night and I'm just thinking like, why are we doing this again? I love that they have a solid friendship. I love that they have each other. I love that they can lean on each other and go through this together. But they are not setting them up for success by saying you're dating all of the same guys. And I know it's The Bachelor. I know it's The Bachelorette. We're all dating the same people in the same pool. It's weird and I get it. But I just feel like we've already done the two Bachelorette thing, even if it was just for a night, and they both deserve their own. And I'm just hoping there's, of course I say no drama. There's going to be drama, but I'm hoping it just works out for them in the end.
For sure. Well, given everything that happened on your season, how do you feel like they're handling having two leads again, based on last night's episode? And maybe give us some insight into what must be going through their heads having been in that position.
It's always so hard for me to explain this because it's The Bachelor and The Bachelorette franchise. So of course, when you go on The Bachelor, you're feeling compared to all the women in the house because you're all dating the same guy and you're all looking at each other being like, well, what does he like? And you're comparing yourselves. They already felt that with one another and with a bunch of women. So now they don't have the opportunity to know what it feels like on the other side where they are in complete control and power and making this decision for them. They're having to think about how the other person feels and if the other person has feelings for this person. And then they're probably comparing themselves thinking well, if he doesn't like me, why does he like you? And what am I missing? So I think they're handling it so well. Obviously, it's only been one night. But, you can already tell that they do have similar taste in men, and that I'm sure that's going to be a problem because we see in the teaser as well that, somebody says, I can't accept this rose. I want it from Gabby. And that's just going to, it doesn't make you feel special, and you should feel special as the lead and on this journey for yourself to find love.
I totally hear you. Well, when Gabby and Rachel were on the show last week, they told us about how they made communicating with each other a top priority. So did you and Britt have a plan like this? I know it was a very different situation, but how was it when you guys were I'm not going to say pitted against each other, but on the season together?
In our situation, it was the men got to decide who was going to be the Bachelorette for the full season. This one, they know they've got the two of them for the full season. So in that way, it's obviously different because they're having two the whole season. I know they wanted it to be who would be the better wife and who's going to get picked to be the Bachelorette. And it was this whole thing that just felt really icky. But Britt and I were really good friends. And so a lot of the times we did communicate and we did talk to each other and lean on each other through it. And I think that's actually a really important thing that they're going to have to do through the whole season, because as long as they can stay on the same page, communicate, have that solid friendship where they're genuinely rooting for the other person to find their person. It's going to get messy, but so is the show. So are a lot of relationships. And it's a really scary foundation to start on when, you want to build a relationship on trust and you don't know who they're there for. But if they're communicating, that's the number one thing you can do in a situation like that.
Yeah. And you and Britt are still friends.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about these limo entrances that we saw. I burst out laughing when James, the meatball enthusiast, popped out of the car with this massive meatball sub. What was your favorite entrance last night? And what would you and fellow Bachelorette alum and co-host Tayshia Adams have been saying in the background?
That's what I miss the most. I'm like, I wish we were just in the background with our popcorn and, having our commentary on each one of these entrances. You know what I was thinking is that usually they are like way more over the top and more, I don't know, I felt like there wasn't as many bits that people were doing as much. But my favorite one, I don't know, I actually did like the meatball one, because if you're gonna call yourself a meatball enthusiast, you better show up with a meatball sub for everybody, enough to feed the whole mansion, and that's what he did. I thought that was really funny. I actually really liked, and maybe this is because of my personal experience, but I actually really liked the guy who put the headphones on each girl, because I remember standing there on the driveway with Britt, and I remember being like, I can hear what he's saying to her, and then he's gonna come over and like, then I'm going to overthink what he said to her compared to what he says to me. And so I actually really appreciated that he had headphones so that the other girl couldn't hear, because it is a very personal moment and he took that opportunity.
Smart man. Well, we saw a lot of Clayton pickup lines. And I got to ask, as a former Bachelorette, like, does that turn you off when your Bachelor ex is brought up? Or do you think it kind of shows that the contestant is invested in you and your storyline?
I think you have to assume that it's going to be brought up a lot. So you probably just want to like err on the side of caution and not bring him up, seeing how it ended the last time. But I thought it was tacky. I didn't like all the Clayton drags. Like, we've already done enough to him. And I feel like he already has he's speaking now about mental health, and he had a really hard time. So to now go back and like kick a horse while it's down, I felt so sad. And I mean, a couple are funny, of course. The choir, little over the top. But I'm just like, leave him alone. But you know what? I talked to him on my podcast about it after he watched the episode, and he had a really good, I guess, attitude about it. He was like, at this point, I just have to laugh. Like, it will soon become those women's journey and not about me. And he goes, so this is like, hopefully the last of it.
His final pick agreed as well. I think she sent out some shade about all the people talking about Clayton.
She said she was more annoyed than he was. Like, she was like, I was getting more annoyed for him than he was.
Well, as Bachelor fans know, on night one, everyone is after that coveted first impression rose. Rachel gave hers to Tino, a general contractor, and Gabby gave hers to Mario, a personal trainer. So do you think these men will go the distance? And aside from Tino and Mario, who else stood out to you? Like, who do you see, making it to those final roses?
I do think they will go far, because I always say a woman's intuition, like there is something to be said about, like, there's been a lot of bachelorettes that have given their first impression rose out to the final winner, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if they made it really far. Eric, he stood out to me, even though I didn't like his reaction to not getting the first impression rose, but I also understand it, because if you think about a bunch of first dates happening in one night, you think you're the only one having this conversation, but you're having it with so many people, and it's really hard to navigate as the Bachelorette, because, and Clayton said this too, you want to be present in the first conversation and the last the same way you were like at the beginning. So to have all these same conversations, and then you think that you had this special moment with them, and then you don't get the rose, you're like, well, now I'm in my head already. It's night one and I'm questioning everything. I'm upset. I thought we had something. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though I didn't like how he reacted to it. But he was someone that I thought was sweet.
Okay. Well, we'll see how he does. As we touched on earlier, you hosted a few seasons of the show with alum Tayshia Adams, and you both did a fabulous job, by the way. If you could have been there with Gabby and Rachel, what advice would you have given them?
If anyone can relate to two bachelorettes, I can't the whole season, but I could have night one. I wish that we could be there for them, only because I think we learned from the last couple seasons of hosting that it was really unique to have someone there for the lead who has been in that position before and who could understand their emotions, their insecurities, we can validate them and be there for them. Yeah. And so I would have just said, like, do what you're doing, because obviously you two are friends. You know know your differences. You know how special and unique you are on your own. If a guy doesn't like you, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with him and what he likes. And it probably wouldn't have been the best relationship for you anyways. But just throughout everything, I would have said what they're doing is communicate with each other. Make that a priority to be on the same page as one another. It's hard because you have to like put yourself first, but you also in this situation have to put the other one right there with you.
Oh, I have to ask you, we see a lot of Bachelor alums make guest appearances during Bachelor and Bachelorette season. Will we see you and your fiance, Jason, popping up and making a cameo? Can you tease us on that? And if you can't, then just tell us about wedding planning, because we know that's in the works.
We actually won't be coming up on this season. I know that there was like a chance for us to a couple times, but we're so busy and all over the place that we couldn't make it work. Otherwise, I would have loved to be there for them. Wedding planning, we're just slowly but surely doing it. It's so hard because I sometimes don't even know what city he's in. He doesn't know what city I'm in. We both have such different lives, but like when we're together, we try and do what we can to move forward with wedding planning. But then it always feels like 2 steps forward and then 4 steps back. Yeah. And it's really hard to plan a wedding when you're not in the same city and when you
hire someone.
We have someone. We have a wedding planner. The only problem is we had a date and we had a venue and they came back to us and they're like, this has never happened to us before, but we actually are booked that date and we didn't think we were. And it was the date that we really wanted. So now it's kind of like, again, going backwards, but I'm okay with a long engagement. I've had that before. And I always joke, and Jason agrees, that once we get married, it's like baby time anyways, so we'll enjoy the long engagement.
Kaitlyn, this has been so fun, and it was just such a pleasure having you on. Everyone, make sure to listen to her podcast. She gets all the Bachelorette goods, and thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.